weekend, everybody, and good evening. Welcome live inside the VIBELAND Sports Studios. I'm Todd Miller, along with Casady Fletcher and Kelby Peterson. It is episode 33 of VIBELAND Sports. Have a full show. We're going to talk Thunder basketball, NFL, OSU football, and, of course, the World Series is upon us as well. Glad to have you along for episode 33. Guys, I don't know about you, but I've had better weekends in terms of football altogether, fantasy, and in the real world. One good thing, though, Casady, the Sooners rolled past West Virginia.
Oh, they sure did, and they looked very good doing it, Todd, and just was an exciting to see after the Texas game that OU is still locked in and they're ready to take on whoever's in front of them.
KP, I know you've had better weeks. I don't know about fantasy, but certainly in the real world than you had this weekend, and we'll talk more about that a little later, but otherwise, how was this past weekend for you?
It wasn't too bad. I got to go enjoy America's Greatest Homecoming. And it was.
By the way, I saw some of the decorations.
It was incredible.
They may be the best they've ever been.
It was. I was saying that too. Like the detail this year, the colors. It was just each year is bigger and better, and there was just some cool stuff that I got to see out there. So that part was great. Now the football part, if we just pretend like that didn't happen, I would say what a great weekend it was. But yeah, let's just say that today I'm much more excited to talk about my Dallas Cowboys than my OSU Cowboys.
We're going to do both here on our segment of VIBELAND Sports, episode 33. Don't forget, if you have not subscribed to our podcast, you can do so through Apple, Spotify, and Apple Podcast or Spotify. And, of course, don't forget to follow us on social media at VIBELAND Sports on Twitter and Instagram, and VIBELAND Sports on Facebook. Last week, guys, we had a timely question. And most people agreed with what we thought, that the blame should fall, at least the majority of people thought the blame should fall on Jason Garrett, the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, for their problems. 47% of you agreed Garrett is the problem. 36% said Jerry Jones, and 17% of you that voted said the players. We're going to talk about the Cowboys and the Eagles to start things off. Guys, I got to tell you, Colin Cowherd hit it square on the top of the head this week when he was talking about the Philadelphia Eagles, about their bravado, about their arrogance ever since they won the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. He said they've gotten fat and sassy. Their coach went out and wrote a book. There's terrible ego problems apparently in that Philadelphia locker room. I picked the Eagles to win the NFC East this year over the Dallas Cowboys, and apparently I could not have been any more wrong, because the first of two head-to-head showdowns occurred Sunday night in Texas, in AT&T Stadium, and man, this is what we're going to get, though, guys, for the Cowboys. You're going to get where they look like the best team in the league, and then you're going to get the New York Jets game, Cowboys too, but at least for a week, they look as good as anybody in football.
Absolutely. Like you said, the Eagles getting fat and sassy and happy about it. You know, Doug Peterson basically came out this week and guaranteed a win. And
and here's the thing that bothers me about that. He shied away from it really after the game. He just kind of slithered off into the dark.
It was
instead of owning what he had said.
He said it enough to get the players motivated. Ask DeMarcus Lawrence, excuse me, DeMarcus Lawrence about that. He used that as motivation, and that's why he was one of the players at the game when it was all said and done. But yeah, I got news for you, Doug. It was over about 7 minutes into the game, because 7 minutes into the game, the Cowboys were up 14-0, and the Eagles only scored 10 points total in the game. But like you said, Todd, the Cowboys, they looked like they could be the best team in the NFL, and then the week before, they looked like they're the worst team in the NFL. So which team are you going to get? Which offense are you going to get? And creating early turnovers makes you look like a really good team. And the past few weeks, the Cowboys haven't been able to do that. The turnover margin was 4-1 this Sunday. So 9 times out of 10, when your defense creates 4 turnovers, you're going to win that game. And given that Cowboys offense, that field position, 37 points is kind of in my opinion, a disappointment compared to what they could have done. So they kind of relied on Brett Maher to come save the day a couple more times. And how about them again? I'm so inconsistent. I don't like him still, but another 63-yard field goal.
Oh, yeah.
He's got a better chance to make one from 62, 63 yards than he does inside 40.
I agree. Yeah, I just dropped him in a fantasy league because I was unhappy with the way he was kicking just regular run-of-the-mill field goals.
I said it before, but I love that visual of the ball being lined up behind the 50.
Yes,
when he goes to kick behind the star.
It's
just a really cool visual in Dallas. But yeah, I mean, like he's anywhere, but especially with that star, it just looks extra cool.
What was your thoughts, Casady, on the Cowboys?
I honestly thought that they came out and gave the Eagles that's the best version of the Cowboys that we're going to see right there. I think that they performed at about the highest levels that they could and still left opportunities out there, which is kind of scary thinking they scored 37 points and they could have still been, it could have been 50. And we could have been looking up here at, historic levels of beatdowns, which I still think it was the biggest margin of victory for the Cowboys over the Eagles since like 96 or 98.
Wow.
I mean,
they're always, it's a close series. That actually makes sense. I believe that.
But my gosh, I was so happy to see finally everybody clicking on the offensive end again, and the offense able to move the ball the way they're supposed to. The defense, my gosh, they were all over Wentz.
That's the defense.
He had no chance ever. He would take a drop back and would just have 3 people in his face and was getting smothered. Just seemed like every other play. So big credit to the front 7 and then causing those turnovers.
That's the defense we've been waiting to see all year. All 11 guys running to the ball, guys getting fired up, tackles for losses, creating turnovers, creating havoc. Wentz had pressure all day. And really, you could look at the other, and Dak, I think, only had, 6 incompletions. So, I mean, the Cowboys just did everything that they wanted to do, and I've said it for weeks. Where was this, early season Kellen Moore playing calling? You saw that very early in that first drive. They ran like a fake read option, and then the next play, that first touchdown, we scored on an option pitch to Tavon Austin. Tavon Austin took it 20 yards to the house on an option from Dak. So I loved how we came out of the gates, the play calling. So let's just keep that consistent. Where is that? Why is that not our offensive scheme every week? When we play like that, we're a tough team to beat. I just looked at our schedule. Every game that we have won this year, we've scored 30 points. The solution is simple. I mean, it's not simple score. I mean, that's 4 touchdowns a game. Easier said than done in the NFL, but that's the blueprint. This defense, if we're putting up 30 points, we're not going to lose.
No, The blueprint, guys, is Dallas Cowboy football. And why they've not been doing this all year long, I'll never understand. Their offense is based on getting the football to Ezekiel Elliott. Feed Zeke. Everything else takes care of itself when that guy is able to run the football. They got away from it the week before against the New York Jets. I don't understand why it's so hard for them to figure out what has to take place. Dak Prescott becomes much more than a game manager when Ezekiel Elliott is able to get his carries and his yards. And I think that's the biggest takeaway is why don't the Cowboys play Cowboy football every single week? Obviously, Philadelphia was very beat up. I mean, that's a terrible game to not have your starting left tackle. I mean, with those 2 bookends on the front 4 of the Cowboys, that is a terrible time to have to stick a guy with not much experience and plug him into the offensive line.
They're lucky Quinn got hurt during
right.
the game.
Oh,
he was causing havoc. So yeah.
At one point, I saw him on the sideline. He was like, "I'm back."
Yeah.
Yeah, you were. Yes, sir.
My other takeaway is everybody's talking about Lincoln Riley to the Cowboys. How about hiring Doug Peterson? Doug Peterson apparently can motivate the Cowboys better than Jason Garrett can motivate the Cowboys.
And I got a question about Jason Garrett. I watched this game extra close after following this fan poll. He's the reason to blame. What does he even do out there? So he has a headset on. Every time the camera shows to him, he's just staring blankly or clapping.
His lips are hardly ever moving.
He's not talking. He doesn't have a play sheet in front of him. Like, what is he doing out there other than, holding his waistband and looking for high fives and jumping awkwardly and celebrating weird celebrations? Yeah,
listening to somebody on the other end of the headset.
It's because Kellen Moore's calling the offense. Marinelli and Richard are calling the defense. So what is he doing? I don't know. He doesn't. I watch other NFL teams and other head coaches, and they seem just way more active and involved. I don't really see anybody just sit back as much as he does. And
did you guys find it interesting that Jason Garrett apparently uses Mike Krzyzewski and Nick Saban as confidants?
I thought that was so weird.
Didn't you think that was interesting?
I heard that he calls Nick Saban a college coach and says, "Hey, what do you do?"
But now he and Nick work together. In the NFL in Miami. So I get that. I'm surprised Mike Krzyzewski doesn't play like the phone line's dead. Who is this? Hello, hello, hello. Well, apparently not. Apparently those 2 are his confidants.
That's so
I thought that was so weird to hear that.
Okay, I talked about getting back to Cowboys football. I talked about Doug Peterson really able to motivate the Cowboys. That's a good thing. I bring you this question now. Did the Philadelphia Eagles keep the wrong quarterback, Nick Foles, over Carson Wentz?
Yes. I think they did.
Man, I don't know why I still believe in Carson Wentz. There are just plays that he makes. Like yesterday, there was a play where he's rolling out to the left, just threw a dime on the run. I'm like that. I'll be honest, guys. I wanted the Cowboys the year we drafted Dak. I wanted Carson Wentz. I was like, that's the guy that's going to take the Cowboys where they need to go. I'm a big believer in Carson Wentz, but here we are. What, year 3, year 4? I think year 4, and he hasn't finished a season completely healthy, and he really hasn't elevated the Eagles to that next level. He got them started, and Nick Foles kind of finished the job 2 seasons in a row. So that's a great question, Todd. I can't answer that question because I like Carson Wentz too.
Here's the other problem. Carson Wentz right now is really having problems throwing the football accurately and without throwing turnovers over 15 yards. Everybody beats Dak Prescott up about not being a deep ball thrower. Well, Carson Wentz, who has a very, very strong arm, you look at what he's done in the first half of this season, he's not been very good on passes beyond 15 yards. The other thing going against Wentz, in my opinion, is they just don't have that running back that scares you. They don't have an Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, Melvin Sanders the Sanders kid has been great, but he doesn't strike fear in you on a night-to-night basis.
No, they don't have that balance that they need from the run game is where it starts, and that's how that's why the Cowboys weren't afraid to just tee it off on Wentz almost the entire game. I mean, they were bringing safeties in, linebacker blitzes. They were just, I mean, it was a well-called defensive performance by the Cowboys, but also you're able to do that and be that aggressive because you're not worried about them hitting you with a little run here or there. They don't really have anybody that even I couldn't even tell you they're too deep for running back right now, and that's one of the very few NFL teams that's probably true.
Yeah, I mean
Howard and Sanders,
Darren Sproles, but he's hurt, so he's.
And I'm going to tell you what else hurts them.
Every name they've had though is hurt.
Deshaun Jackson being out, they don't know when he's coming back. They have no downfield threat right now.
He's a Cowboy killer too.
So. Go ahead.
I was going to make a point about you said about the run game, and remember this too. When the Eagles drafted Carson Wentz, that was a quarterback that had some mobility. He could use his legs, and he has in the NFL, and that's kind of been his. Remember a few years ago, he tore his ACL on a rush to the end zone. He scores a touchdown, but tears his ACL, and so he's kind of shied away from that. So they've had to change the way they call the game, and you're right, Todd. They don't have a running back that can take the pressure off of him, and his legs can't really do that anymore either because of the injuries that he's had.
Well, let's think about this. Doug Peterson goes out and writes a book after he wins the Super Bowl. Frank Reich had a lot to do with that, guys, and he's no longer there. Nick Foles obviously had a huge bit to do with that. He's not there either, and this is nowhere near the Philadelphia Eagles team just 2 years removed from the one that won the Super Bowl. They have issues, and they better get them corrected in a hurry because I'm going to tell you, the way it's going right now, there's only going to be one team come out of the NFC East, and the Dallas Cowboys have a stranglehold, even with just a game lead now at 4-3 over 3-4 Philadelphia because they're already 3-0 in the division. I thought the Cowboys played with a sense of urgency. This looked like a game plan and an effort from a team that would be, let's say, week 12 or 13, and you got to almost win out to make the playoffs. I thought there was that much urgency, didn't you?
Yes, and after a 3-0 start and then you drop 3 in a row, I can see why that would cause, that sense of urgency. And it wasn't panic necessarily, but it was something kind of close to it. It was like, all right, hey, we have to get back to what we do and who we are, and we have to do that immediately.
I think they answered the call. You're absolutely right. They had to do that, and they did it. So I'm glad to see it. I'm not going to jump back on this bandwagon. Even at 3-0, and I said, this may be fool's gold. Let's slow down a little bit. We haven't played a decent team. I would say the Eagles are a decent
It's
team.
the first good win they've had.
Good win. Yeah, you're right.
If there is such a thing as a bad win, right?
Exactly. First good win. So I'll take it. And like you said, it was an important win to get that ahead in the division, even though it's early.
I just really, really think that this is what we're going to get all season long from Dallas. This is one of the most talented teams from top to bottom in the NFL. And you're going to go out and get games where they look like absolute world beaters. And then you're going to get the Dallas Cowboys that showed up in East Rutherford, New Jersey, and played the New York Jets 2 weeks ago. So I guess we just learned to live with it. And when you, the blue and silver, when you root for them, that's just kind of what you get.
Yep.
So, again, we want to thank everybody that logged on to at VIBELAND Sports on Twitter and answered the bell on our fan poll question of the week. Again, the results, who's to blame for the recent slump for the Cowboys? Is it Jason Garrett, Jerry Jones, or the players? 47% of you said the head coach. 36% said the guy who has every other title but head coach. And then 17% of you said it's the players. Let's talk a little more NFL football. Patrick Mahomes goes down with what could have been a very, very significant injury. As it is, it's still significant because the Chiefs have a really tough schedule coming up, and Mahomes is out for at least a month. They're not certain how long, but probably at least 4 to 6 weeks with what was a dislocated knee. Now, they got lucky because there was no ligament damage. Had there been ligament damage, he's out for the year with season-ending surgery. What's your thoughts on running a quarterback sneak with Patrick Mahomes?
I think running a quarterback sneak in the NFL
You're right.
is 80% successful on 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, and that's a fact.
But it's very dangerous.
Tom Brady's doing it more than anybody I've seen, and he's in his 40s. Patrick Mahomes is a guy that you do that because he's a guy I think I run it even more because he knows how to run the football. He's strong. He's powerful. He's a runner, so he knows what he's doing. I know we're only trying to get 1 yard, but that's a guy I do it to. Yeah, the risk, in all the football I've seen a lot more successful short and ones succeed than I've seen injuries on those plays. So to me, it was a freak accident. It happened. And again, the Chiefs are very lucky. And what I saw, they said when they pop a bone or a kneecap back in place like that, the chances are like you could tear a ligament, you could break the leg. So there was just so many things that could have gone wrong. And when they popped that back in place, it worked out. And they said the best case scenario, 3 weeks at most. And I saw a report on Sunday that Patrick Mahomes had already completed 2 days of rehab this week. So it seems like he's going to be back. Todd, you're right, though. Their upcoming schedule is not helpful at all. The 6-1 Packers, then they got the 5-2 Vikings. A little easier game with the 3-4 Titans after that. Then they've got the Chargers. That's 4 games. After that, they have a bye. I think Patrick Mahomes comes back after that bye. Then they're meeting the Raiders. So I think Packers, Vikings, Titans, Chargers.
Yikes.
I mean, Packers is a definite loss. Vikings, let's just be conservative, call it a loss. I mean, they could be 2-2, 2-3. 1-3. It's scary for the Chiefs ahead, but I think at the end of the day, they got to consider themselves lucky, all things considered.
Here's the biggest question. If you're Andy Reid, what do you do about your quarterback situation now? Some of the Chiefs fans have been on social media pandering for Colin Kaepernick. Guys, he's not the answer. He's been out of the league too long. He's not the answer. Is Matt Moore the answer? Matt Moore is a complete stranger to Kansas City. In fact, just about a month ago, do you guys realize about a month ago he was coaching high school football in Southern California?
Yeah,
and now he's in the NFL.
He wasn't even in training camp.
And now,
right?
no, he was not in training camp. In August, he was getting ready for a high school football season in Southern California. Now, as we record this, he holds the future of what a lot of people thought could be a Super Bowl winning franchise on his right arm, depending on any further moves. What does Andy Reid do?
Oh, gosh. I think you just have to try to weather the storm. I mean, you have to get creative. We know that he's a very creative offensive play caller as it is, but you got to put your position players that are elite. I mean, they have some very, very good position players on that team, complementing each other. You have to get them all involved somehow. You may have to be different looks. Maybe you start running some more like wildcat-looking stuff. I just think you get super creative and throw out the old playbook, start with something fresh, and whatever Matt Moore can actually do, you try to maximize it.
If you're Tom Brady, the competition is just melting away.
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, just melting away. The Chiefs, who knows after this stretch without Mahomes what their record is going to be, which now all but assures that any championship game is going to go through Foxborough.
Exactly.
The Indianapolis Colts were a threat at the start of the year to New England. Abruptly, Andrew Luck retires. You know who might be as good as anybody in the AFC right now? And it's certainly not because of their offense. Their offense stinks. But the Buffalo Bills have a heck of a defense, guys. A heck of a defense.
That defense is for real.
right now, is there anybody else playing better than the Buffalo Bills besides New England in the AFC? I mean, the Chargers have been an absolute dumpster fire.
The Ravens at times.
2-5 Chargers.
The Ravens.
That was the team
I would give the Ravens over Buffalo because they have the defense and the offense.
But that's crazy to think that they may be the second best team.
Or third at worst.
In the AFC right now.
And
I just did not
the Ravens,
see that coming.
are they sustainable or are they a week to week? I don't think they're when I say sustainable, I don't think they're a team that can beat the Patriots.
They're so inconsistent right now. If they can find a way to play at their peak for like the whole second half of the season, they could really get something going. But right now they're just up and down every week. You don't know which Ravens team is going to show up. They're going to get blown out by a bad team or go beat the pants off the Seahawks. I mean, it's crazy.
The competition is just falling away for New England in the AFC. Speaking of the best team in the NFL, I think the best team in the NFL is the New Orleans Saints. I thought they were done when Drew Brees went down about 4 weeks ago. They have not lost since with Teddy Bridgewater behind center. And yesterday, they go to Chicago against that defense and run roughshod over the Bears without Drew Brees, without Alvin Kamara, and without a very big weapon in tight end Jared Cook. That is the sign of a great football team when you're able to lose that type of weapons and still keep rolling. I'm going to say right now the Saints, do you guys agree, are the best team in the NFL?
I can't go that far. I can't say anybody's better than the Patriots right now. So until somebody else dethrones the champs, I'm not. But I will give the Saints a lot of credit.
That defense they have is nasty.
Yes. I hate to go with Kelby on this one, but I would have to agree that right now I think New England is number one. I think that the Saints are possibly and probably the best team in the NFC right now, although Green Bay is they look pretty good at long stretches of times. San Francisco is still, unbeaten, and
I'm still not buying into them. I mean,
I'm
yesterday
either,
they played with a lot of fire with Washington.
I agree, but they continue to win.
Yeah.
So,
and here's the thing, guys. I wanted to talk about a little bit about the Saints and what an excellent move it was with Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater had other offers to be a starting quarterback in the NFL, and the Saints decided they were going to pay and invest a little bit more than typically you do in a backup quarterback, and that has paid off significantly. Look at where their season is at. All he has done is won every single game he started. Let's talk about the Chiefs here in 5 or 6 weeks. Maybe they wish they did the same thing. Matt Moore, being a high school coach a month ago, is the guy that they picked up and now has the keys to their franchise. The Saints made an investment in a backup quarterback as a safety valve, and boy, has it paid off. All he has come in and done is won every single game.
Well, I think one of the reasons the Saints did it because they have a guy that is much closer to 40 years of age than 30 years behind center. But you're right. It still doesn't matter. A lot of teams don't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's happened to Dallas over the years. It's now happening to Kansas City. Sometimes backup quarterbacks, because people don't want to pay the bucks, are an afterthought. But boy, oh boy, if you ever lose your starting quarterback and you don't have one,
it's a
most teams
problem.
in the NFL, when your quarterback goes down, if you, let's say, just like the Saints, after game one, your loss total increases probably by 3 to 5, maybe more. I might be being conservative here.
Over the course of the season,
3 to 5 games because your starting quarterback doesn't play. Obviously, it's the most important position in football. The Saints have got 0. They are right where they want to be. They are right on track. Their season has not gone off the rails whatsoever because their superstar franchise best player ever in that franchise probably got hurt, and they're okay. Incredible.
Well, and look what's happening in Carolina. They had a backup.
Same story.
And guess what? We might not see Cam Newton again in Carolina as the starting quarterback.
Did you watch Greg Olsen call the game this weekend?
Yes, that was so.
First, I thought he did a good job.
Excellent.
Yeah,
he's so bizarre.
He's definitely a football. He's when he gets to be a pro, he's going to be great at it. He's definitely a football player that came and called a game. Once he becomes a broadcaster, he's going to be excellent at it. But before the game started, Michael Strahan, they were interviewing him. They go, "What do you do, Greg? You play for the Panthers. You're here right now. Here's a tough question. Do you start Cam?" I thought Greg answered the question great. He said, "Look, you basically said, Kyle's the guy right now. Until Cam Newton is Cam Newton again, we're going to go with Kyle. Like, Cam Newton is this quarterback that took us to a Super Bowl. That guy's not gone. He's still there, but we're an undefeated team with Kyle right now. We got to go with a hot hand, and until Cam is Cam, it's Kyle's job.
Cam Newton might not be back. Marcus Mariota is probably done for good in Tennessee.
Yikes.
And Jameis Winston, they're going to move on from him in Tampa. So a lot of the names you thought were going to be big-name quarterbacks at the start of the year, they're not even going to be around. They're going to be now serviceable backups is what's
And
going
it
to happen.
goes back to the whole thing of there's a lot of just garbage out there right now under center in the NFL. It's bad.
Which therein lies the argument for people that say you have to pay Dak Prescott what he wants. Because you can't just go out and get an above-average quarterback in the NFL. They
You're
don't
right.
exist.
You're right.
Not for all 32 teams.
Not at all.
So, all right, that's our thoughts of the National Football League. I'm just going to say the Saints right now still are the best team in the NFL. I'm not saying they would win if they played New England just because it's the Patriots and their system. But, boy, that team is very, very talented. When we return, we'll talk just briefly about the Thunder. We're also going to talk about the World Series. KP's going to give you his thoughts on Oklahoma State's debacle at homecoming last week. This is episode 33 of VIBELAND Sports, a weekly presentation of VIBELAND, Inc. Welcome back again to episode 33 of VIBELAND Sports. Todd Miller, Casady Fletcher, and Kelby Peterson. Glad to have you along as we discuss a myriad of topics. We've talked professional football with the NFL in our first segment, gave you the results of last week's fan poll question of the week. Before we go any further, I want to tell you, because I tweeted this out, we were scheduled to have Brady Trantham on this episode of VIBELAND Sports. He's the Thunder insider and OU insider for the franchise radio, 107.7 here in Oklahoma City. We had some technical issues on our side, not Brady's, so we have agreed to reschedule that interview. It is rescheduled for next Monday, and we will get much more in depth about the Oklahoma City Thunder, who by that time, guys, will have already played 3 games. Vegas this week came out for their win total projections for all the NBA teams. They predicted the Thunder for 32.5 wins. That's this week's fan poll question of the week. How do you think Oklahoma City fares this season? Do you think they go over the projected win total of 32.5, or do you think they're under 32.5? I don't know if there's been a team in the NBA for a long, long time, both good and bad, that has entered a season with so many question marks as the Oklahoma City Thunder. Because this team is decent enough to win games right now, but it's probably not going to be the team that finishes the year.
Yeah, it's so weird. I don't know how to answer this because, like you said, there's so many question marks. I mean, looking up and down the roster, there's like less than a handful of guys that have been Thunder guys for a while. Is the most veteran Thunder player on our roster now Steven Adams and Andre Roberson? I mean, isn't that crazy to think? I still remember when Steven was the new guy trying to get minutes from Perk. You know, that doesn't seem that long ago, and now he's the franchise. So, yeah, there's just so many. Chris Paul, I mean, our starting 5 is going to look so different. The bench is going to look so different. There's just, and the rest of the league, Todd, to answer the question about the over-under, the rest of the league has gotten a lot better. The West has gotten extremely better. The East has gotten better. I mean, you lose Kawhi, but like the teams like the Nets have gotten better. The Celtics, I think, the way they're constructed, will be a little bit better.
Yeah, player distribution is a lot better than it has been in several years.
Exactly. So, yeah, I think it's like you said, just a million question marks. And just it's going to be one of those things that even with all the expert analysts you want to give it, you really can't answer it until you see this team get on the floor and how they're going to play together. Are there going to be, chemistry issues, or is Billy Donovan going to flourish now that he feels like he can coach an NBA team? Is the ball going to move more? That answer is yes. But, there's just a lot of things that we don't know the answer to yet.
Well, we ask your opinion. Vegas has projected the Thunder for 32.5 wins. How do you think OKC fares this season? Do you think they go over that projected win total or under? That's our VIBELAND fan poll question of the week at VIBELAND Sports on Twitter. I'll tell you this. I don't think there's any way Chris Paul is here beyond the trade deadline. The biggest question is Steven Adams here the entire year? I think there's a lot of people, and I want to ask Brady this next week, that believe he will be here the entire season. I don't know that that's necessarily true, because I think if Sam Presti gets a package deal that he likes, the big Aussie will be out of here too.
I mean, yes, but I sure hope not. I really don't know what to think about Steven Adams because I thought he was going to be one of the guys that was going to get moved off first. And when all this,
And he still may be.
yes, but when this whole thing got blown up, I mean, though, I thought he was going to be the first guy out the door that they were trying to ship, and maybe they tried and didn't get a package they liked for him. I know he still owed a decent amount on his contract, and but I like the fact of having him there as that like solid rock of this is what the Thunder. We want you to be hard nosed, care on defense, hustle everywhere, never take plays off. You know, he embodies kind of the whole way that the Thunder want to play. And I think having him there as kind of the anchor of that team, that everybody else may change out throughout the season. There's going to be a lot of moving parts. There's probably going to be multiple trades made. Guys maybe come in just so they can get traded and play for a week or two on the Thunder and go right back out the door. It's going to be weird for the next little bit, but I think having one guy there that you can always count on could help stabilize the team a little bit. And so I'm actually going over on that win total, by the way, for the VIBELAND Sports, the fan poll question of the week. And I think it's because Steven Adams is there the whole year, and he's able to at least get the team pointed in the right direction.
I want to disagree with you. I think they're slightly under 32.5. I don't think by much because I just don't think that Adams and Chris Paul are going to be here by season's end.
See, I don't think Danilo Gallinari is going to be here very long
I think
at
he's
all.
the first one to move.
Yeah.
And he's going to be the scorer, in my opinion.
Well, yeah.
Because, in my opinion, Todd, I think Steven and Chris, they're going to be the hardest ones to move.
Chris Paul's not going to be hard to move at the trade deadline
right.
when there's a team
Sure.
that has
Those
a chance
contracts,
to.
though.
Yeah, but there's going to be a team desperate
right.
enough to take on that contract that could either make a big leap by getting a veteran point guard or has a chance maybe to nose their way into the playoffs in one of the two conferences by acquiring a guy like him.
I think, and I think I've said it on this show before, is the longer we hold on to him, the more valuable he becomes.
No
because
doubt.
The closer to the trade deadline we get, the more desperate teams are, and the more they've got a clear vision of, hey, this is how much our window is open. It's a win now, so we got to make a move now for Chris Paul. So
And the less of a contract hit it is for you. I mean, when you really get down to it.
I don't know. It's going to be interesting because I don't want any more draft picks, really. I mean, 13 first-round draft picks is plenty. I mean, I would like to at least see something that looks like a semblance of a professional basketball team out there. I will say this, and I have not watched probably more than 10 minutes of the NBA preseason this year. I don't like watching it. This would have been the year probably to do it, though. Oklahoma City, as they are constructed, at the guard position and in the paint, they're a playoff team. Here's the problem. They are terrible on the wing.
yeah,
And
yes.
the NBA has not become a guard league. It's become a wing league. And it's certainly not a big guys league anymore. So there is where I think they're going to struggle if this team stays together as is, which it's not. I think they're very good at the guard position. I think Steven Adams is a very good NBA big man, but they just don't have the strength on the wing as far as I'm concerned.
And they just were trying anybody last year. I mean, they had so many acquisitions, so many young guys coming in and out of there. And I thought they were, pretty decent up until obviously this latest iteration of the Thunder, now that everything's been blown up and you don't have Jeremy Grant out there that can do his whole thing. And he was always kind of a nice anchor, I thought, as a guy that could stretch the floor into the corners. You don't have anybody.
The wing position in today's NBA has become like the quarterback position in today's NFL. If you don't have it, you're not going to be very successful.
Yeah,
You agree with that, KP?
I mean, we've had that the last few years. We had, let's go talk back a ways. We had the best wing player in basketball in Kevin Durant. He left. There was a season without him. Then we got Paul George. I mean, those
have been successful winning teams.
Exactly. We're going to see something totally different. Our wing player right now, I think, is Andre Robertson, who hasn't played basketball in basically 2 years.
Does he even still play basketball? Honestly, is he going to be playing?
I don't think so. I think the Thunder, that's what's going to be interesting about the Thunder this year is that wing position. We're going to see a lot of guys play that position. I think we're going to see Darius Baisley, the rookie player. We're going to see Andre. We're going to see Hamidou Diallo. I mean, we're going to see Nader. We're going to see a lot of names back there. So it'll be interesting to see who solidifies that role and who kind of takes the Thunder into the next phase of this rebuild at that wing position, because I think that's the most important spot to fill. Because like you said, Todd, I think we're good at the big man and we're good at the point guard. That's the next position to fill.
Yeah, and that's what's going to really hold this team, as it's constructed right now, back from being a team that could make a push for the 8th spot in the West. They're not there now as they're constructed.
Yeah, I still think that this team, I don't think the playoffs are anywhere in the picture for them. I'm saying, though, probably mid-30s is probably their ceiling.
I think it's a great over-under number, honestly.
And that's, I really like that 32.5 number the more I think about it, because
By the way, Vegas is pretty good at what they do.
they are, And it's the moving pieces throughout the season that you cannot really quantify of how much it's going to impact this team, but it's just going to be a lot of change for this Thunder franchise. And again, there's been so many guys go out the door. I'm just going to be excited to see whoever we have wearing Thunder blue. I'll be rooting for them, but at the same time, I don't. It's so weird. I don't want them to do too well because I want their chances to go up in the draft.
Again, we apologize. We don't have Thunder insider Brady Trantham on this week. He will be on next week, and that's not necessarily a bad thing because we're going to have 3 tests for the Thunder, and I mean 2 big-time tests to discuss. The open-up Wednesday night in Salt Lake against Utah, home Friday for the home opener against Washington, and then home Sunday against Golden State. The NBA did not do Oklahoma City much favors in a rebuilding season with 2 of those first 3 opponents. By the way, if you want to follow Brady, you can do so on Twitter at BradyDoesSports. The B, the D, and the S are capitalized. Everything else is lowercase. Does a great job covering the Oklahoma City Thunder. World Series time. Guys, I'm excited about this. This is historically as good a pitching matchup amongst starting pitchers as we've had in a long time. I mean, you look at who Washington's going to roll out. Steven Strasburg, Max Scherzer, Patrick Corbin, Anibal Sanchez.
Dang.
Of those 4, you would think Strasburg or Scherzer are the one that has won the ERA title. Anibal Sanchez, who's number 4 in the rotation, has won 1 earned run average title in his major league career. Amongst that foursome, they've made 12 All-Star games and won 3 Cy Youngs.
Wow.
That's decent.
That's an impressive starting 4. How about this? Garrett Cole, Justin Verlander, Zach Greinke is who Houston counters with. Your thoughts on the Fall Classic?
I think it is going to be a great World Series. I said this before. I thought the Astros were just going to destroy anybody that came in their path. I think this series may go 6 or 7 because of the pitching that the Nationals can have. But again, in my opinion, I think the Astros are going to come out on top of this thing. I think experience wins out. I think Washington, what an awesome story that is, to lose your franchise player, never really sniff the World Series. I mean, they've gotten close. They 1 year they have a
Forget
good
the
team.
World Series. They had not won a playoff series since '81 when they were in Montreal.
Well, remember the one season they had one of the best seasons in baseball, and then they decide to sit Strasburg for the playoff run because he had all those injuries. So now they're in full force, and they don't have a Bryce Harper. I just liken it to, like, the Bryce Harper leaving the Nationals was the same, in my opinion, as KD leaving the Thunder. And imagine the Thunder going to the NBA Finals the next year while playing, Golden State more times than any team that year, because the Phillies were in the same division as the Nationals. So the Nationals had to play Bryce Harper a lot this year, and all they did was go to
I've got to
World
stop
Series.
you there. That's a bad comparison, Harper and KD.
You said
Sure it
the
is,
superstar
because
magnitude.
They're superstars, but in baseball, one superstar
You're
doesn't
right.
get you to the World Series.
There's
Kevin
10
Durant
other
was
guys, yeah.
a definite difference
You're right.
maker here in Oklahoma City. So
Not a fair comparison completely, but to the
we got
casual.
to disagree on this podcast
You're right.
once in a while.
To the casual baseball fan, that's the magnitude of Bryce Harper leaving. You need to understand that it was the same as KD leaving. It was your superstar, the guy that you drafted, who was at one point the best player in the sport, and he leaves your team, and the next year you're in the World Series. Yeah. That's incredible. And I got to give a shout-out to my Uncle Kerry, my cousin Ethan. They're national season ticket holders. They've been at every game all season long. I saw the celebration of the team when they won the game to go to the World Series. The video that the Nationals posted, my uncle and my cousin are at the end of it holding up a big Nationals flag in the outfield. So I'm excited for them. But again, One of my best friends, Daniel. Shout out to him too. Huge Astros fan. So I'm happy whoever wins this. I've got family and friends on both sides. The Astros, they just won one 2 years ago. They got theirs. I think it's the Nationals' turn. But
You got anybody else on this KP Does Family Hour show that you shout out?
That's all of them. But there's some more connections.
You sure?
No, I got more, but I'll keep.
Well,
it
go
brief.
ahead. You're making this all about KP's family and friends.
Brief.
Come on, let's do it.
I'll keep it brief. Astros in 6.
I'm going to go with Houston in 5.
Wow.
Despite that pitching, I think the Astros offense is very, very good. And I just think they could match up with them pitching-wise, too. Incidentally, Casady, Houston is the biggest World Series betting favorite since 2012.
Ooh.
Isn't that amazing?
That surprises me.
It does me, too, with Washington's pitching.
Yes, and the fact that I think what's going to hurt Washington the most is having to sit for, what has it been, 5 days now since they've played a game? They were on fire. They just were on a different level than anybody else in the NL for about the last 2.5 weeks or so. And then you just have to cool the jets and not get to play and just have to play the waiting game. That could hurt them ultimately. I think it's going to slow them down. They're not going to get that momentum rollover like they had. But when you're playing that good of baseball like they have been, you are just going to be able to go up there and feel comfortable. So I've got the Nationals winning this thing in 7.
You know what? I think I made a boneheaded pick, and I'll admit it. I just don't know hardly how you can go against Washington. I have not seen a team on a run heading into the World Series like this in a long, long time. In fact, the Nationals kind of remind me of the Royals back in 2014 and 2015. Kansas City was not the best team in baseball. They weren't the best team in the American League.
But they got hot
at the right time,
Yep.
And they had a terrific decent starting pitching and a terrific bullpen.
Yes.
And Washington is not the best team in the National League. They're not better than the Dodgers. Don't care what you say. But they are playing better than anybody in baseball right now. So I probably made a bonehead pick by saying Houston in 5, and I don't know that you're out in left field by going with Washington. If they do win it, it's going to be a long series.
That's exactly what I think. And honestly, if they had just had 2 or 3 days off, like the Astros are coming in, I might have said the Nationals in like 5. I mean, I really do think this big gap is going to hurt them the most. They're going to stumble out of the gate, I feel, when they had all the momentum in baseball behind them.
KP, you know what this is. This is sour grapes over here.
I think so.
Hello, world. Meet sour grapes. He was the only one that didn't pick Houston to win it when we started. So his team got ushered out and dismissed very, very quickly. So he doesn't want you and I to be right and have to live with this for a while.
And talk about momentum. The Astros are full of momentum. Their last hit was a World Series sending home run. Come on.
Tell me about that elimination game, but right
season.
before that, where they dropped it to the Yankees.
You're right. The Nationals the last 2 months, they're hard to beat in that regard.
I'm taking Houston in 5. You've got them in 6. You like Washington in 7.
Yes, sir.
Series starts Tuesday night in Houston. One other thing to talk about on this week's edition of VIBELAND Sports, Oklahoma State football. We're going to let KP just take over the microphone. Man.
Do we have to?
Yeah, well, I know you want to talk about it.
I've just had so many bad thoughts about OSU that I've never had before. I'd said it was embarrassing.
Welcome to Casady, nice world.
I can't think of a more embarrassing performance by one of my teams on a bigger stage at homecoming than that. Baylor's a good team. That's the thing that makes me so mad about this 4-3 team. The loss to Texas, the loss to Texas Tech, the loss to Baylor. You can't tell me that those 3 teams are that much better than Oklahoma State. But the fact is those 3 teams beat us. And the fact is they probably are better than us because they beat us. We've lost to those teams. So Texas, I don't know. It was a closer game. Texas Tech, we played like hot garbage. And Baylor, with the fourth quarter and the irresponsibility with the football just made me so furious because leading up to the show, what did I say last week? I said I would really like Gundy to open up the playbook, maybe a trick play, maybe another fake.
Yeah.
Fake punt for 20 yards on a first down. Great play. I said it would be really good if our backup running backs got more involved. LD Brown breaks off a 60-yard touchdown run. So all the things lined up. And then again, in the fourth quarter, I said to Casady before this show started, Spencer Sanders is back there thinking that he's still playing Texas high school football. He's the best athlete on the field.
He is so into his own head.
He's not the best player on the field anymore. He can't operate that way. He is an excellent player and a game changer, but there's dudes on the defense that are just as fast as you, just as smart as you, and a lot of them are more experienced than you. He killed us in the fourth quarter with 2 huge fumbles. We start the fourth quarter up. Baylor scores. We run out on the field, and I think on third down, Spencer fumbles the ball. They scoop and score. Next possession, I think we turn it over on downs. Baylor runs it 70 yards, touchdown the next play. So it was just over before it even started. They took all the momentum away from us in the fourth quarter. Like I said, Spencer had 2 really bad turnovers. And the fact remains right now, guys, is that I saw Gundy's press conference today. He seems to be almost in denial about it. He's comparing it to like your kids not listening to you. You know they're good kids, and you know they're going to turn out right. Well, he's like, it's the same thing with this football team. Well, Gundy, this football team is 4-3. I don't think it's just going to turn out right. I don't know what has to change, but something has to change.
Let me ask you this. If the turnovers continue, does Drew Brown come in?
I think he has to. And I hate to say it because you want Spencer to get all this, experience and, valuable time out there. But if he's irresponsible with the football, consequences have to happen.
Do you think Gundy is hesitant to do that because he is the quarterback of the future and you run
Exactly.
a risk of really messing with his head
Exactly.
if you pull him?
Exactly that. And I also think maybe Drew Brown's not as good as Gundy made us believe he was. But I think a lot of it has to do with getting in Spencer's head. And here's a point that Gundy has constantly said. He said it's really not a fair gauge of a quarterback until he's really played in like about 20 games. Well, by the way, Baylor would have been game 20 if Spencer would have played all of last year like all the OSU fans were clamoring for. So this may not be happening because the things that are happening to me come from inexperience. And he would have that if he wouldn't have inexperience if he would have played all of last year, but it's too late to talk about the past. But another big issue I wanted to get to was our defense. Our defense, they can't hide anymore behind this offense. And it's hard to hide your defense in the Big 12. OU knows about it. They've been able to hide it. And now their defense is a big focal point for that team. So that's the difference again between the gap between OU and the rest of this conference is glaring again because OSU's defense is not even close to what OU's trotting out there. They are a bad, bad defense. And I hate to say it. I mean, it's a hard thing to do, hard to hire, but I don't think we've got the right defensive coordinator there. He's been there for a season and a half, and it's time for a new one.
Which brings me to a thought. I've got a couple thoughts. One, I know that there's a segment of the Cowboy fan base that is ready to move on from Mike Gundy. And I get where they're coming from. I think Mike Gundy has gotten fat and sassy in Stillwater.
Yep.
I think he knows his job is safe. And I don't care whether it's in business or on the coaching sideline. When you get that way, that's not a good thing. The other problem that Mike Gundy has is Mike Gundy is a really good football coach. I think we'd all agree with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mike Gundy is not, nor has he ever, in my opinion, been an elite coach. And there are a lot of elite coaches working the sidelines today in the Big 12 Conference. And if they're not elite, Matt Campbell, Matt Rule, they're very close to being elite. And Mike Gundy is going down to the totem pole as far as the coaching spectrum is concerned in the conference.
He's getting passed.
Now, if you're a Cowboy fan, and deservedly so, you're pondering out loud or to yourself, is it time to move on from Mike? I urge you to think about this. I don't know that Oklahoma State would get a better coach than Mike Gundy. And if you got a good coach, I would think, especially if they did not have ties to Stillwater, that becomes a stepping stone job.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Do you agree with all that?
100%.
So don't you think there's a quandary in wanting to get rid of Mike Gundy and the realization that we really probably shouldn't get rid of Mike Gundy?
That's what OSU fans need to realize is, get rid of him, new coaches. Like, that just doesn't magically fix the problem. I think it creates a bigger problem because nobody can recruit to Stillwater, Oklahoma better than Mike Gundy. He's not from Stillwater, but he basically is Midwest City, went and had the college experience at Stillwater, and has had post-success because of Stillwater, and now runs the team in Stillwater. That's if on paper, if you're a kid from Canada, like a Chuba Hubbard, if you're a kid from out of state, Stillwater, Oklahoma might seem like a podunky town, but once you come there and experience it there, it's something different. And I can speak from that experience because I've been there. It is something different. It's something magical about being there, and you either love it or you don't. And if you're there, you love it. But to recruit a kid there, if you're not from there and haven't experienced that, it's hard to honestly recruit to there. And so I think if Gundy leaves, I think we've got a long way to go because the talent isn't going to come in as much as it has, and I think the product on the field isn't going to be what it was. So I think we need to pump our brakes before we think about getting rid of Gundy, because it is hard to recruit to Stillwater, and we've been spoiled. We've had a great guy and maybe the best to ever do it there right now.
I'll add on to this. It is a concern, though, right now at Oklahoma State.
It is.
Because this program right now is slipped.
Absolutely.
In the last decade, and we're closing out this decade, over the last 10 years, Oklahoma State, I think we could agree, and you could probably go average the wins, has been the second most successful program in the Big 12 Conference. Right now, they're in jeopardy of going 0-6 against Texas Tech, Baylor, and Iowa State over the last 2 years if they lose in Ames, which they're probably going to do.
Absolutely.
That has to send a big league red flag up, I would think, with the Cowboy faithful and where this program
Texas
is right
Tech
now.
alone should be the red flag. We have dominated that program until
They
the last 2
dominated
years.
those three programs. I think I saw a stat before that. Gundy was like 21-2 against those teams.
Wow, I didn't realize it was like that. But I mean,
No,
that sounds.
but
that
it's very
sounds
close
right.
to that.
I mean,
it is very close to that.
And we were talking about that. My dad and I were talking about this the other day. Like, Baylor's had some great teams roll through there. We used to call RG3 RG 0-3 because that wasn't what his record was in
They
Stillwater.
couldn't win in Stillwater. They played terrible.
0-3. So I mean, they're the good Baylor teams that have rolled through haven't been able to beat OSU. Iowa State really hasn't had a lot of good teams, but I mean, they've got our number a couple times. I still have nightmares about 2011 when they got us in Ames. But you're right. Yeah, Gundy has dominated those teams, and the fact that he's about to be 0-6 in the last 2 years is alarming.
It is
Embarrassing.
alarming.
I'm not disgusted yet, but I'm getting there. Like I said, the thoughts I've had, embarrassing. And then for the first time ever this week, I did have the thought, like, is Gundy's time up? I can't believe that thought. I've been an OSU fan diehard since I started going to school there in 2008. Was a fan casually before that, but I would consider myself, as soon as I became a student there, that's when I was all in on it, and I've never had that thought, and it was weird to think that. As OU fans, you guys probably haven't had that thought in 20, 30 years. Is this coach the right coach for the university? But I have never had that thought.
Oh, no. When Howard Snellenberger was there, when
existed.
John Blake was
in the
there,
90s. It happened.
good Lord, man.
When I was a kid, yeah, it was always fire the coach all the time. That's all I grew up
And
on.
don't kid yourself. There's a lot of ignorant Center fans that still fire the coach.
That's
Oh,
true.
gosh.
I mean, you know how many times there was a group down there, I'm sure, that wanted Bob Stoops gone?
Oh yeah, every Texas loss, every loss every season, it was fire Bob Stutes, and to have one of those a year, consider yourselves fortunate.
All right, that's this week's edition of VIBELAND Sports, episode 33. Don't forget to log on to @VIBELAND Sports on Twitter and Instagram. Follow us on Facebook as well. VIBELAND Sports. Subscribe through Apple Podcast or Spotify. And, of course, while you're on Twitter, make sure you take part in this week's VIBELAND Sports Fan Poll Question of the Week. Vegas has projected the Thunder for 32.5 wins. How do you think OKC fares this season? Over 32.5 wins? A, B, under that win total? @VIBELAND Sports on Twitter. Guys, been fun. See you again next week.
Sounds
God
great,
willing,
Todd.
the creek don't rise.
That's right.
I'll be here.
And we're getting closer to bringing a new voice on, we think.
Ooh.
And when you
Stay tuned.
when you hear this guy, you'll think he's a late night disc jockey.
We're all going to be out of a job.
He's smooth. All right, see everybody next week for episode 34. For KP, for Casady, I'm Todd. VIBELAND Sports is a weekly presentation of VIBELAND Inc.